The border route lanes near Vega Ix were usually quiet at this hour, quiet in the way deserts are quiet. With heat shimmering under the surface and predators buried just out of sight, Captain Iris Munro had flown this corridor more times than he could count, enough to know when the stars themselves felt wrong. Tonight they felt wrong. From the cockpit of the Wayfarer's Light, a ship that looked like a patched-up civilian freighter from every angle that mattered, Iris watched the starlines stretch and fold as he drifted along the trade route. His fingers tapped lightly against the worn control panel. Not impatient, not nervous, just thinking. The hum of the ship vibrated through the seat, steady and familiar. The kind of sound you trusted. It's the kind of sound that felt almost alive. He exhaled slowly. "You feel that too, old girl?" he murmured. The ship didn't respond, of course. But he'd always talked to her like she could hear him, maybe because in the darkest corners of the galaxy, a pilot needed something to talk to. Or maybe because the Wayfarer S-Light had saved him more times than most people he'd ever flown with. On the nav screen, Vega Ix glowed like a pale ember wrapped in rings of dust, a beautiful planet from a distance. Up close, a political mess, a trade hub, and a magnet for raider clans who smelled weakness the way wolves smelled blood. The Terran Coalition kept peace where it could. But one truth had remained constant since humanity first crawled into the stars. Out here, kindness was mistaken for weakness, and weakness was eaten alive. A faint metallic ping echoed through the cockpit, small, subtle, almost ignoble. Almost Iris leaned forward. There it is, a proximity signature, faint, moving slow. He tapped the console, expanding the signal. 3 ships. No transponders, no trade beacons. No F-raiders. He didn't tense, didn't swear, didn't even blink. Instead, Iris Munro smiled, small, quiet, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "Well," he whispered, "guess we're doing this?" He slid a hand down to the throttle, but didn't accelerate. The Wayfarer's Light kept its gentle, harmless drift through the starlands, playing the role it had been built to play. A lone human freighter, unarmed, slow, vulnerable. Exactly what pirates loved most. But inside Iris's chest, his heartbeat remained calm. A man who had survived 4 wars, 7 ambushes, and a ship explosion that should have killed him wasn't easily rattled. He still remembered the medic's words afterward. "You're lucky, Captain. Something wanted you alive." He never argued with that. Not anymore. Not after everything he'd seen. The small miracles that happened in a universe too cold and vast for coincidences. He wasn't a preacher, barely religious. But there were nights when he looked at the stars and felt something watching back, quiet, patient, protective. Tonight, the stars offered no reassurance. The proximity alert chimed again, closer now. The raiders were tightening formation. Iris flipped a switch on the console, and the internal lights dimmed. The ship's engines softened to a whisper. Every piece of the vessel began to mimic civilian signatures, perfectly temperature readings, engine patterns, cargo tonnage. The disguise was flawless. That was the entire point. He sat back as a shadow crossed the Wayfarer's Light. A large ship, easily twice his vessel's size, glided overhead, blocking out the starlight like a winged creature descending on prey. Its hull markings were crude but unmistakable. The Tarka Voidclaw clan, known for hitting small convoys and leaving nothing but scorched metal behind. A voice crackled through open cum frequencies, rough and hissing. "Freighter vessel. Kill your engines. Prepare to be boarded." A pause, then a mocking laugh. "Try anything clever, and we'll decorate your hull with pieces of you." Iris leaned forward and pressed the cum toggle. His voice came out steady, gentle even. "Understood." Engines powering down. He did not power them down. He only let them sound powered down. A second ship slid into view, then a third surrounding him like a closing fist. The Voidclaw clan didn't take chances. They wanted him pinned, trapped, certain he couldn't run. The lead pirate contacted him again. "Open your cargo bay." Iris's hand hovered over a switch beneath a protective casing. He didn't touch it, not yet. "Copy," he replied, tone calm. Too calm. Because the truth was simple. No one ambushed the Wayfarer S-Light and lived to brag about it. but his steps felt steadier. The ground trembled, hard enough to crack the pavement. Cade's helmet snapped 2 full tactical mode scanners, motion tracking, seismic readings, all spiking at once. Reyes shouted across, "Comes contact!" Multiple heat signatures in the lower districts? The horde had arrived. A shape appeared at the far end of the street, massive, hunched, wrong. Limbs like broken shadows, plates of shifting dark material that drank in the firelight instead of reflecting it. A nightmare-wearing muscle. It opened its maw and released a sound that wasn't just heard. It was felt, like grief, like madness, like the echo of a world dying. Cade lifted his rifle. The squad formed on his flanks. Adrenaline surged, sharp and electric the fear, the resolve, the thin thread of hope he clung to like a lifeline. "Tactical positions," he shouted. "Hold this line." Even over the roar, even over the quaking ground, even over the rising smoke, he felt that quiet presence again. Not saving him, not shielding him, just steadying him. Just enough. The horde creature raised its head. Reyes whispered, "Sir, do we fire?" Cade's jaw tightened. We knew this was only the first wave, the smallest wave. The beginning of something the galaxy had never defeated. His heartbeat slowed, his breathing steadied, his hands stopped shaking. "Yeah," he said. He stepped forward, one human against a nightmare. Fire. And as the squad unleashed hell, Cade felt the sky tremble. Somewhere in the smoke, he swore he heard distant thunder, though the forecast showed no storms for 1,000 kilometers. But tonight, maybe even the heavens wanted to witness what humans would do. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. The Voidclaw Raiders hovered in formation, their engines growling like beasts preparing to feed. The boarding skiffs glided closer, bright floodlights sweeping over the Wayfarer's lights still disguised as a harmless, patched-up human freighter. Then, with a deep mechanical exhale, the ship changed. Panels along the hull folded away like metallic petals opening to the sun. The dull gray plating retracted in sections, revealing interlocking layers of reinforced alloys, smooth, predatory, and unmistakably military grade. A low hum rippled through the void. A hum that did not belong to a cargo vessel. The pirate commander's voice cracked over. "Comes what?" "What is that?" Iris Monroe did not answer. He simply remained still, hands drifting over the controls with the calm precision of a pianist at his instrument. His heartbeat remained slow, steady, but the air in the cockpit felt charged like static before lightning. The holoscreen flared to life as the ship's systems shed their false civilian programming and booted into full tactical mode. A ghost ship with a skeleton of steel and a soul built for war. The HUD lit up with threat markers, target locks, energy readouts. A dozen windows blooming across the screen like blue fire. The pirate skiffs didn't understand what they were approaching. Not yet, but the larger ships did. Their engines surged in panic. "Human, cease your actions immediately." The Voidclaw commander barked, the once confident snarl replaced with a strained, cracking fear. "Identify your vessel." Iris tilted his head slightly, his voice quiet enough to sound almost like a prayer. "Revenant," he said. Just that one word. A name whispered in some corners of the galaxy. The kind of classified rumor smugglers laughed about in Barzan, till the laughter died and silence followed. The raiders must have recognized it, because the moment he spoke the name, frantic chittering erupted across the cum. Orders overlapping, voices shouting, engines powering up. They wanted to run, late. The ship, AI calm and emotionless, spoke into the cockpit. Hostile vessels, in attack posture. Weapons authorization confirmed. Iris closed his eyes briefly. Not to pray, not formally. But something in him, some instinct older than battle training, offered a silent thought to the universe. Let this be quick. He opened his eyes. Revenant protocol, he said softly. Execute primary defense pattern. The ship responded instantly. 3 heavy plasma batteries emerged from the hull with the grace of unfolding wings. Magnetic accelerator rails hummed as they locked into firing position. The internal reactor shifted to combat distribution, energy surging into weapon banks. Oh, the Wayfarers. Light the harmless, battered freighter was gone. Its place stood something sharp, lethal, designed with Terran intent. a vessel built to remind the galaxy why humans survived everything thrown at them. In the next moment, the universe erupted. A single plasma burst lanced out from the Revenant's starboard battery clean. Silent, a beam of blue-white heat-hand tore through the nearest pirate skiff. The vessel didn't explode, it evaporated, its hull dissolving to molten fragments before the pilot could scream. The second and third skiffs veered off immediately, but the Revenant was already tracking them. Pulse from the rear cannon disintegrated one. The last tried to hide behind the pirate mothership. A fatal mistake. The beam cut straight through both ships. The skiff vanished. The mothership's hull buckled inward like tin crushed by a hammer. The raiders panicked, scrambling to break formation, to flee, to fight anything. But the Revenant was made to fight outnumbered. 3 against 1 had never been odds. Not for this ship. Not for the man flying it. The communications channel lit again this time frantic, desperate. Human. Ceasefire. We didn't know. This route is neutral. We claim ignorance, Iris ignored the voice. Not out of cruelty, but because the battlefield didn't allow space for pleas. If he hesitated here, he died. If he faltered for compassion, he died. It wasn't hatred that steadied his hands. It was survival. It was duty. It was the quiet knowledge that out here in these empty, lawless crossings, there was no one coming if he fell. No cavalry, no backup. It's just a man and a ship, and the thin thread of purpose that held them together. The first raider warship turned hard to port, engines burning bright as it fled. The Revenant tracked it, target lock, railgun ready, firing solution optimal, the AI murmured. Hey, send them home, Iris said. The railgun thundered once silent in space, but the vibration rippled through the cockpit like a heartbeat. A tungsten slug accelerated to a fraction of light speed pierced the raider ship's stem to stern. Its engines tore free in a burst of fire and the ship spun into debris. One down, Iris whispered. The second pirate vessel attempted to cloak, shimmering behind a distortion field. Clever, but the Revenant had been built to fight the unknown. Cloaking was just another trick humans had learned to see through. The Revenant's sensors pulsed once, twice target reacquired, the AI said. A micromissile swarm streaked outward like a cluster of burning fireflies and tore the concealed ship apart. 2 down. Only the Voidclaw flagship remained. Its engines burned at full output trying to outrun the kill zone, trying to escape the doom it had summoned by attacking what it thought was prey. Iris felt something then, a flicker of emotion behind his ribs. Not anger. Not fear. Resolve. The pirates would do this again. They'd slaughter another crew, raid another convoy, spill innocent blood along the border lanes. He couldn't let them go. His voice was steady. Bring me in range. The AI complied. The Revenant surged forward, engines roaring like caged thunder. Stars stretched around the cockpit. Acceleration pressed Iris back into his seat, but he barely felt it. His mind was sharp, focused. As they closed the distance, the pirate commander's voice returned to the come, no longer arrogant but pleading. Human captain, stop. We surrender. You hear me? We surrender. A long silence filled the cockpit. Iris' hands hovered over the controls. Surrender. A small word. Heavy word. He could accept it. He had in the past. War taught him respect for those who yielded. But something about the commander's tone sharp, trembling, forked felt wrong. A lie. A trap. His instincts whispered it. The quiet part of him, the one that believed the universe had rules, meaning felt it too. A subtle sense like cold wind under the skin. Don't trust them. AI, Iris said quietly. Scan the flagship. The ship responded, detecting weapon charge buildup. Forward batteries engaging. Probability of ambush, 98%. The pirates weren't surrendering. They were stalling. The pirate commander's voice broke into a frenzied shout. Cease fire, or we will destroy you. Iris almost laughed sad amusement like a man listening to a child lie. You tried kindness? He whispered to himself. You really did? Then he spoke aloud. No, he fired. The Revenant's primary cannon unleashed a column of energy brighter than a sunbeam, struck the flagship dead center, and the ship split apart in a silent flare of molten metal, its hull scattering into fragments that glowed briefly like dying embers. Silence followed. The battlefield drifted with cooling debris, broken metal, empty darkness, and one human ship, wings half open, glowing like a blade sheathed in starlight. Not a slow breath, not victory, not pride, just relief. Quiet, weary relief that washed over him like a tide. He leaned back in his seat, staring through the canopy at the scattered ruins. The stars beyond shimmered, patient witnesses to another night of violence in a world that had forgotten peace. He felt something in his chest. Not guilt, but a weight. The weight of surviving again when survival shouldn't have been guaranteed. A whisper drifted through his mind. His grandfather's voice again. Not luck. Not skill alone. Someone wanted you to live. He didn't say anything. Didn't nod. Didn't deny it. He just breathed. The Revenant whispered through its speakers. Threats eliminated, Captain Monroe. Iris exhaled. Yeah, for now. But deep in the dark, beyond the wreckage, something flickered on the edge of his sensor range. Something watching, something waiting. But the night was... For several long seconds, the battlefield drifted in silence. The shredded remains of pirate hulls rotated slowly through the void, glowing faint orange from residual heat. Vaporized metal glittered like ash caught in sunlight. The hum of the Revenant 13's engine softened to a low, steady rhythm, almost a heartbeat. Iris Monroe let his muscles unwind one by one. His fingers loosened on the controls. His breathing steadied. The cockpit's lights dimmed to their usual warm amber. He was alone again. For the first time since the ambush began, the quiet arrived. But it wasn't normal quiet. Had a tension to its edge, like the air just before a storm. The Revenant's interface pulsed suddenly. Ping, ping, ping. A new signal flickered onto the HUD, faint, intermittent, weak. A distress beacon. Iris frowned. You've got to be kidding. The AI spoke calmly, as if announcing weather conditions on a peaceful afternoon. Captain Monroe, an emergency transmission has been detected. He zoomed the feed. The beacon frequency was old. Ancient by spaceflight standards. It was a Terran code from the pre-expansion era, back when humanity's reach barely grazed the edges of its own solar system. No modern ships used it, actually. No ships use this at all anymore. Iris leaned forward. Location. Unable to triangulate. Signal strength fluctuating. Estimating sources within 3 million kilometers. That's a big search field. Affirmative. Iris tapped the console once with the side of his knuckle. The sharp click echoed through the cockpit. Yes. This wasn't random. Signals didn't appear out of nothing. Not here. Not right after an ambush. Unless something had been hiding or someone. He watched the flickering green icon pulse on the map. Regular, unstable. Humans didn't cling to outdated distress codes by accident. If this was real, if someone was broadcasting that ancient frequency, it meant one thing. Whoever sent it was desperate. Possibly dying. Possibly alone. And possibly very human. Iris exhaled through his nose. Revenant, cycle scanners, narrowband detection. Maximum fidelity. Running. Another pulse from the beacon, this one clearer, sharper, like someone gasping for air. The sound, not words, just the electronic tone, sent a strange shiver through Iris's chest. He'd heard distress signals before, too many times. But this one, it had a certain jagged rhythm, like pain, like fear, like someone refusing to give up. The AI's voice interrupted his thoughts. Captain Monroe, this transmission is not automated. He froze. What? The beacon is being manually activated. Intermittent pauses between pulses suggest conscious input. Someone wasn't just alive. Someone was pressing the signal. Iris stared at the screen long enough for the faint green icon to blur slightly. His breath held without realizing it. 3 million kilometers wasn't far by space standards, but it was far enough that a dying ship, damaged or drifting, might never be found without help. The Revenant hummed again. The AI waited patiently, but Iris felt its presence, like the ship understood the weight of this moment. Or maybe that was just him. His jaw tightened. Plot a course. Course plotted. He didn't move immediately. Instead, Iris leaned back in his seat and whispered, almost to himself, You've got to stop doing this, Iris. He always did it. Every time he found a ghost, a signal, a chance to help someone he didn't know anything to, he took it. Even when logic screamed not to, even when it meant risking ship, life, mission. Some of his fellow officers once joked, if Iris Monroe sees a dying star, he tries to revive it. He'd never denied it. It's not since the day he survived the explosion that should have killed him. The day he woke in medbay to a stunned surgeon whispering, "You shouldn't be alive. Something must have wanted you back." Iris didn't believe in miracles. But he believed in responsibility. Quite an unseen responsibility. The kind that tugged at a person from the inside. Sometimes he wondered whether that tug came from his own conscience, or something larger than him. He didn't know, but he felt it now. A faint pressure behind the ribs. A sense that this signal wasn't coincidence. That someone was where they weren't supposed to be. And he had been placed here for reasons he couldn't explain to find them. His fingers wrapped around the throttle. Let's go. The Revenant surged forward, engines burning a trail of blue-white thrust. The debris field fell behind them. The beacon grew stronger. Cockpit lights darkened automatically as the ship shifted into pursuit mode. Iris watched the stars blur into streaks of silver as the Revenant accelerated. A soft tremor ran beneath the floor. Plates subtle, steady. He wasn't sure if it came from the ship or from something inside him. 10 minutes into the search run, the sensor reading sharpened. Ping. Ping. The beacon flashed brighter on the HUD. Target found. Iris leaned forward as the Revenant slowed to a glide. Space around them darkened. The natural shadow of Vega X's outer debris field. Asteroids floated in lazy orbits, some small enough to fit in his hand, others the size of skyscrapers. A perfect hiding place? Or a graveyard? "Revenant," Iris said softly, "give me a visual." The screen flickered, and an image resolved. Iris's breath caught. Ship drifted between the rocks, small, barely intact. Hull torn open like a wound. Lights flickering weakly. Engines dead. Life support offline. Model Iris recognized only from history archives. A Terran Explorer MKI. A ship that shouldn't exist. A ship from before the first expansion wave. A ship that hadn't been built in over a century. "What the hell?" the AI spoke. "Vessel shows extreme age and battle damage. Design schematics suggest launch date approximately 112 years ago. That's impossible. No pre-expansion ship could survive this far out." Agreed. Iris zoomed in. The whole number was half-ripped, but he could still make out part of it. TX-47. His spine tingled. Revenant. Cross-reference. That model was retired after the Vega Lost expedition. Confirmed, Iris felt the bottom of his stomach drop. The Vega Lost expedition. A mission from a century ago. A group of 10 Terran explorers sent into this region, ever heard from again, declared lost, presumed dead, gone. But here, one of their ships floated, alone. Still broadcasting a distress code more than 100 years out of date. He spoke softly, barely breathing. Scanned for life, silence. Then one faint human bioscene detected. His pulse spiked. Alive? After all this time? That can't be right, rescan confirmed. One human life form aboard? Aboard. Condition. Critical. Iris closed his eyes for a moment. A man. A single man. Alone on a century-old wreck in the cold dark, pressing a manual distress signal with what strength he had left. For a moment, a strange emotion flickered through Iris, a whisper of awe, disbelief, and something deeper. Not miracle, not exactly, but close enough that it made his breath unsteady. "Revenant," he said quietly. "Take us in, Captain." The ship glided closer. As they approached, Iris watched the wreck's lone window flicker, a dim glow, shape moving inside, slow, weak, human. A survivor the universe had abandoned. A survivor waiting for a hand that should never have arrived. Iris whispered, "Hold on, I'm coming." The Revenant extended docking clamps. The airlock sealed with a metallic thud. And as Iris stood from his seat, heart pounding, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose, sharp, immediate, undeniable. Not because the mission demanded it, not because the ship required it, not even because duty compelled him, but because somewhere in the broken dark, a man was still alive, still fighting, still refusing to die. And Iris Monroe would not let that fight end in silence. He stepped toward the airlock as the door hissed open. The next moment would change everything. The war room fell silent. Galactic envoys, scaled, feathered, furred. Crystalline watched the Terran captain's declaration echo through the chamber like a shockwave. "One human word," Captain Hale repeated, stepping forward. "One word from us, and this entire alliance survives or collapses." The Tsar Dominion representative, towering reptilian general, hissed sharply. "You threaten us, human." Hale shook his head. "Oh, I'm reminding you what you already know." He tapped a control on the holotable. A projection bloomed battlefields from the past century, human carriers holding orbital lines alone for 72 hours, Marines in exosuits dragging wounded alien allies back from collapsing trenches, Terran engineers stabilizing failing planetary shields in minutes, human destroyers blocking superweapon blasts with their own hulls. The memories weren't propaganda. They were moments every species in that room had lived through, moments that had altered the course of the war. "You don't need to fear us," Hale continued softly, "but you can't pretend you don't rely on us." Admiral Sarax of the Evoria clicked his mandibles. "Humans, you never surrender. Even when it is logical to surrender," General Kuroth of the Vexel added. "You fight as if the universe itself must bend to your will." Hale smiled at that. "We fight because if we don't, someone else suffers." The holotable switched to a new projection. A star system, strategically vital, now under siege. The enemy had arrived sooner than expected. The Karth swarmed hundreds of bioships, a hive mind civilization that consumed everything in its path. Panic quivered through the delegates. The Tsar General slammed his claws on the table. "We are not prepared. This is days ahead of projections." Admiral Sarax whispered, "If that system falls, the entire frontier collapses." Silence. All eyes turned to Hale. He took a long breath. This was it. The moment every previous chapter of human history had been preparing them for. Not strength, not power, responsibility. He opened a communication channel. "Terran High Command," he said, voice steady. "Activate Directive Solaris." Gasps erupted. Directive Solaris was a theoretical last-stand maneuver. A deployment of every reserve fleet. A mobilization that would stretch humanity to its absolute limit. The Terran commander on the other side responded, "Captain, if we commit Solaris, Earth will be undefended." Another silence. Hale closed his eyes, then spoke the words, "Humanity protects first." Always the channel closed. The reptilian general growled, "You would leave your homeworld vulnerable. To save ours?" Hal didn't hesitate. "That's the point of an alliance." The room shifted daily in expression softening, bristling hostility melting into respect. Admiral Sarax bowed his head. "Terran Captain, we misjudged your species." The crystalline delegate added, "We thought humans sought dominance, but you seek duty." Another voice rose from the youngest alien in the chamber, a small feathered scholar. "This is why the humans win, not because they are strong, but because they choose to bear burdens no one else will." One by one, every species representative stood. "We stand with Earth." The command relays across the Terran network echoed like thunder. Directive Solaris confirmed. All reserve fleets mobilizing. Civilian sectors transitioning to blackout defense. Protocol across the galaxy, dormant stations flickered to life. Massive shipyards that hadn't operated in decades roared awake. Old warships legends were pulled from orbital museums, stripped of dust, and rearmed. Humanity had just committed everything. Not half, not most, everything. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. The Solaris fleet assembled hundreds of ships forming a growing ring of steel around Earth. Titan-class dreadnoughts, Argus carriers, Solaris gunships, old but deadly lance frigates. The flagship TNV, Dauntless, taking point. On the bridge, Admiral Reyes watched the incoming swarm intelligence battle telemetry. "Captain Hale." He transmitted to the Alliance chamber, "Solaris is fully mobilized. We stand ready." Alien delegates watching the live feed felt their breath stop. The sight was overwhelming. Human ships weren't beautiful. They weren't sleek. They were purpose-built, dense armor, blocky hulls, overcharged reactors, weapons mounted like fangs. They looked like they were carved out of the universe's nightmares. The Tsar Dominion general leaned forward. "You Terrans, go to war like you go to work." Hale gave a thin smile. "Work gets done." The Evoria admiral shook his head, eyes wide. "We've never seen a full human mobilization. This is excessive." Hale turned to him, voice steady. Excessive is what stops extinction. Sensors triggered. A ripple tore across subspace like a scream. The Karth swarm arrived, not in dozens, not in hundreds, in thousands. Living bioships, organic holes pulsing with parasitic energy. Joined by titanic hive behemoths, city-sized organisms that could crack continents. The system's defenders were already breaking. Human fleets accelerated to FTL interception speeds, engines glowing like miniature supernovas. A whisper passed across the comm channels, spoken by Marines, engineers, pilots, medics, and admirals alike. A cultural phrase, old as Earth's first space wars. "Hold the line," Admiral Reyes repeated it into the fleet-wide broadcast. A vow, a promise, a declaration, no matter what comes, no matter the cost. Solaris fleet, hold the line. The two forces clashed. The Karth swarm slammed into the human line like a tidal wave of nightmares. Bioships released corrosive spores that melted shields like wax. Hive Titan beasts fired tendril lances capable of piercing a cruiser in one strike, but the humans didn't fall back. They didn't scatter. They tightened formation. Every ship overlapped its shields with the one beside it. Every carrier launched fighters not in waves but in walls. A moving, living barrier of metal and willpower. Admiral Reyes shouted, "Fire all kinetic rails." A roar filled space. Meteor-sized slugs tore through bioships. Hive beasts erupted into drifting ash clouds. The aliens watching remotely were speechless. A scholar from the feathered Curie species whispered, "They're not fighting for victory. They're fighting so no one else has to face this alone." The swarm pushed harder. Human ships were taking brutal losses. The TNV Resolute's hull ruptured. Its captain locked himself on the bridge and rammed into a hive beast. The ISIS Herald stayed behind to evacuate wounded Avori crews, firing until its reactor overloaded. The Dauntless took a tendril strike that cut half the ship open. Humanity was bleeding, but not breaking. Never breaking. Captain Hale watched the real-time battle from the Alliance chamber. The alien representatives waited for his reaction: fear, panic, desperation. Instead, Hale simply straightened his uniform and said, "Prepare your fleets." The Tsar General blinked. "To retreat." Hale looked at him with quiet human fire. "To join us?" He pointed at the screen where the Terrans held the line, a wall of steel against an ocean of nightmares. "Humanity has shown you the cost of survival. Now show us the value of alliance." For a long moment, the Alliance chamber was silent. The holographic display showed humanity's Solaris fleet still locked in brutal combat. Holding a battle line that any rational species would have abandoned hours ago, ships burning. Fighters streaking like fireflies into the jaws of living giants. Command crews shouting through smoke. Engineers welding ruptures with bare hands because the auto repair systems had died. Medics praying quietly over blood-slick floors. Captain Hale watched it with jaw clenched, fists tight at his sides. This was the cost, not just of survival, but of hope. The Tsar Dominion General, a towering reptilian warrior, pushed himself to his feet, armor plates rattling. He locked eyes with Hale. "Terran." Hale turned. The general spoke with hard resolve. "My people owe yours nothing, but we owe the galaxy everything." He slammed his fist to his chest. "The Dominion will deploy all combat clans. We stand with Solaris." One by one, alien leaders rose. The Avori Patriarch, his voice trembled as he spoke. "Your people bled so we could breathe." Avori carriers launch within the hour. Curie Scholar, small, feathered, shaking. "We have no warships, but we have healing cruisers and shield buoys. Let us mend those you cannot save." Thornok Forge Lord, a massive stone-skinned being whose species only rarely left their homeworld. The Forge sends its dread miners. Slow, but indestructible. One after another, species who had never stood together, never even spoken without distrust, pledged their fleets. The chamber filled with an energy Hale had never felt before. Unity, courage, something like destiny. Or maybe the quiet work of a god who stitched moments together when they mattered most. The Curie Scholar whispered to no one in particular, "This many hearts choosing the same path. This cannot be an accident." A thought that warmed Hale's chest in a way he didn't fully understand. Orders flew across the stars. Cities dimmed to conserve power. Orbital stations rotated to hard points. Fleets that had never launched together now synchronized their drives. The alliance had awakened. In the chaos of the galactic channels, one message repeated. For Solaris, for Terra. Hold the line, reinforcements inbound. The Solaris fleet was breaking. Hull debris floated like metal bones. Emergency pods drifted between wreckage. Human ships had switched to fallback comms, some transmitting prayer fragments mixed with static. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, wounded arm held against his chest, his uniform torn. Reactor at 30%. Kinetic rails offline. Casualties, 74%. He could barely remain standing, but his voice didn't waver. We do not retreat. A lieutenant choked out, Admiral, why do we keep fighting? Reinforcements are not. Reyes placed a hand on his shoulder, steady, warm, because someone has to believe we're worth saving, just as the swarm's largest hive beast tore through the right flank. Tendrils glowing with malignant energy, a shockwave rippled through the void. The swarm paused. The humans looked up. Lights pierced subspace. Hundreds. Thousands. The void lit like a sunrise. Reinforcements had arrived. The first to exit FTL were the Avori carriers, sleek, silver, almost fragile-looking compared to human warships. But they deployed thousands of microfighter drones that flooded the battlefield in shimmering formation. Next came the Tsar, Dominion warclaws bristling with plasma spines. Then the Thornok dreadminers, colossal, slow-moving juggernauts whose hulls were carved from their planet's own tectonic plates. Behind them, shield buoys from the Kiri lit the darkness in gentle blue swells, knitting broken human shields back together like glowing thread. The channels exploded. "'Tis the Tsar Dominion, deploying in phalanx. Avori wings incoming, we have your skies." Terra Thornok miners breaking the hive formation, Kiri healers en route, hold on, humans. The dauntless bridge went quiet. Reyes blinked, absorbing the impossible sight. His voice cracked. The galaxy came. A junior officer whispered, tears in his eyes, "Sir." Someone heard us. Reyes didn't say it out loud, but in his heart he felt it. Someone always does. Back in the Alliance chamber, Hale activated the fleet-wide uplink. Across thousands of ships, human and alien, his voice carried like iron. All forces, this is Captain Hale. We stand together today because humanity refused to let the dark consume us alone. Now we refuse to let it consume any of you. He looked around the chamber. Tsar, warriors ready for death. Avori pilots trembling with courage, Kiri healers whispering quiet prayers in their own language. This is our stand. This is our unity. This is our answer to extinction. He paused, voice lowering. Let's finish what Solaris began. The galaxy synced its weapons. Human ships recharged, shields reinforced by alien tech. Alien fleets hardened their lines, guided by human battle algorithms. A silence fell, the kind of silence where fate holds its breath. The Kiri scholar whispered softly, "May the Creator watch over the brave." No one argued, no one scoffed. The moment felt, guided, exhaled, steady. Across the fleet, captains tightened their grips on their armrests. Pilots steadied trembling hands. Brains whispered prayers over old dog tags. Admiral Reyes lifted his chin as his bridge glowed with returning power. The galaxy. For the first time in 12 hours, the battlefield fell into a tense, terrible silence. The kind that comes right before a universe changes direction. The Karth swarm shifted uneasily, as if sensing something vast moving beneath the fabric of reality, something that was no longer human alone. Something unified. Captain Hale watched the holofeed from the Alliance chamber, jaw set, breath slow. The galaxy's fleets, his fleets now hovered in perfect formation. Synchronized through Terran battle algorithms and alien precision. A miracle built from desperation, courage, and the kind of unseen order that sometimes whispered through moments like this. Admiral Reyes braced himself against the bruised railing of his half-broken bridge. Even with medical tape wrapped around his ribs and dried blood on his cheek, he stood tall. His officers watched him like he was gravity itself. "Status," he ordered. "Shields restored to 50%, thanks to the Kiri buoys. Avori drones screening the port side. Tsar, warclaws forming into a spear formation. Human kinetics back online." Minimal ammo, but enough. Reyes nodded once. All ships prepare for the counterstrike. He paused, eyes narrowing at the colossal hive beast drifting ahead. Its tendrils twitched, organic armor rippling like living nightmare flesh. Target the heart and do not stop, the hive beast screamed. Not through sound, through gravity. A violent ripple tore out from its core, bending starlight. Twisting space like it had hands wrapped around the universe's throat. Smaller swarm organisms rallied around it, forming a grotesque living shield. The swarm sensed unity, recognized threat, understood extinction, and for the first time, the swarm feared. The Kiri healers whispered prayers, feathers trembling. The Avori pilots wiped nervous sweat from crystalline helmets. Zar warriors slammed claws together in death chants. Thornok dread crews steadied themselves within stone-plated holes. Humans tightened straps, swallowed fear, and whispered old earth phrases like talismans. Let's go. Come on, come on. Hold together. Guide my hands. Not today. Not us. Faith wasn't a doctrine here. It was a heartbeat, pulse that connected them all. In the Alliance chamber, Captain Hale issued the final command. His voice was calm, steady, almost too human for the scale of what he was about to unleash. All forces, advance. The word echoed through thousands of ships. Fire. Space ignited. Human kinetic rails thundered like the wrath of ancient gods. Slugs streaked through the void at fractional light speed, punching through organic shields. Zar warclaws launched plasma spears that melted swarms like butter under a sun. Avori drones moved as one, weaving in shimmering arcs, slicing through tendril constructs with surgical precision. Thornok dread miners charged reactors until their holes glowed white-hot, then fired seismic shock lances that shattered hive armor like brittle glass. Kiri shield buoys projected shimmering arcs of blue protection around every damaged Terran ship. And through it all, as the galaxy unleashed its fury, the human vessels roared forward at the front. Leading the charge, absorbing the brunt, bleeding first, because that was human nature. If hell was coming, they were going to meet it halfway. The creature thrashed, releasing a wave of dark energy, a psychic blast that scraped against the minds of every living being. Avori pilots screamed, Zar warriors staggered, Kiri healers fell to their knees. On the Dauntless, consoles flickered and officers clutched their skulls, but humans stayed standing. Bruised, shaking, teeth clenched, but standing, because they had seen nightmares before. Ow. In trenches, in deserts, in oceans, in stories passed down generation to generation. Humanity had evolved under fear and learned to weaponize hope. Reyes wiped blood from his lip and snarled, "Give it everything you've got." As alien and human fleets united their firepower, the hive beast convulsed, revealing a pulsing, luminous core, something like an eye, something like a star, something like a star, something alive. Hale stared at the data streaming across his console. Magnify. The image zoomed. He froze. The core wasn't just alive. It was filled with moving shapes, humanoid shapes, human, alien, dozens of species, all wired together through organic tendrils, trapped in a psychic network, a parasite of consciousness, a prison of minds. The swarm wasn't a single species. It was every species it had consumed. And its collective mind wasn't merely a hive. It was a graveyard of absorbed civilizations, Hale whispered. Oh, dear God. Somewhere in the back of the chamber, the Kiri scholar whispered a trembling prayer. May the lost be freed today. For the first time, the hive wasn't just an enemy. It was a tragedy. Admiral Reyes steadied himself. His voice was hoarse, raw, almost breaking, yet unshakably firm. All ships, concentrate fire on the core. Free them. Humanity didn't fight for victory. They fought for souls. The galaxy. The hive beast's core cracked open. Not explosively, but slowly, like an egg splitting under the weight of some enormous radiant truth. Light poured out in long trembling rays. Pale gold, warm, alive. It washed over the battlefield like a sunrise in space. Human sensors went blind. Alien telemetry collapsed into static. The swarm stopped moving, every organic ship freezing in place, tendrils curling inward like fearful fingers. A silence settled over the void. Not the quiet after battle, a listening silence, a waiting silence. On the Dauntless, the bridge was bathed in that strange golden light. Admiral Reyes shielded his eyes with a shaking hand. His first officer whispered, "Sir, I feel warm." Someone else murmured, like, "Someone's watching us." Reyes said nothing, because he felt it too. Not a presence behind them, but around them. In the light, in the breathless stillness, in the strange calm, threading through a battlefield that had been chaos seconds ago, something was here. Something ancient. Something that had been trapped inside the swarm for longer than humanity had existed. All over the room, leaders froze. Even the hardened Tsar general, who feared nothing that bled, went still. Hale stared at the central hologram. The hive beast core was fully open now, revealing an interior chamber lined with luminous tendril spines and tangled neural architecture, and at the center, a shape. Not quite physical, not quite energy, something human-like. Not in form, in presence. The hologram flickered as the figure inside the light turned, as if it saw Hale through the projection, through the battlefield, through the stars. And then a whisper, not over speakers. Not through radio, inside every mind. Not a thought, a feeling shaped like a voice, soft, tired, grieving, free. Hale staggered back, grabbing the table for support. The Tsar general hissed, "I heard it." The Avori patriarch clutched his chest. We all heard it. The Kiri healer was openly crying. It sounded like everyone, because it was. Hull forced himself to stand upright. His voice trembled. The swarm isn't a species. He turned to the chamber, eyes wide. It's a parasite of consciousness. It absorbs entire races. It wears them like armor. The Thornok Forge Lord rumbled. "You mean it consumes minds?" Hale shook his head painfully. Not consumes. He pointed at the image where that figure hovered in the golden core, a fusion of countless souls trapped together. It keeps them alive. A prison, an eternity of trapped thought. A collective of agony. A mind built from billions of voices trying to scream through one throat. The hive mind is not just a monster. It's the weight of every civilization it killed. A grave that thought. A mausoleum that hungered. The golden light pulsed. The figure within it trembled. Every being on every ship felt a soft brush in the mind, like the faintest touch of a hand they'd forgotten they needed. Then the voice came again. "You're kind." Pause, as if the speaker was searching for words. "Fights with hope," Reyes whispered. "It knows we're human," the presence answered. "We have watched. Across centuries. None resisted the way you do." The voice broke. Not like a machine failing, but like a person crying. "You are the first to break our chains." The swarm shrieked. Every bioship spasmed, tendrils flailing blindly. Hive beasts curled inward in pain. The entire swarm felt the light like poison, like purity, like death. The voice whispered, "It fears you." Hale swallowed hard. Why? The light dimmed, flickered like a dying candle, trying to stay awake long enough to say one last important thing. Because where others bowed. A tremor shook the battlefield. The hive beast thrashed. The light tightened, strained. "Your species stands." The golden radiance dimmed violently. Tendrils from the core, lashing inward. Trying to smother the figure, to seal the chamber again, to prevent the galaxy from hearing the truth. Aliens gasped. Humans shouted. The psychic voice trembled. "Please, finish this." It wasn't a command. It was a plea. A pleading of billions. Pleading of children, elders, warriors, and civilizations erased. But still awake, still aware, still suffering. A pleading older than the swarm itself. End US. The hive beast surged. The light flickered, and the psychic connection collapsed in a scream of stars. Captain Hale stood frozen for 1 second. Just one. Then he looked up, eyes burning with a fire deeper than anger, the defiant compassion that defined humanity. He shouted into the alliance-wide link. All forces, his voice cracked. He forced it steady. Liberate them. Every species heard it. Every ship understood it. This wasn't extermination. This wasn't revenge. This was mercy. The Alliance fleets aimed everything at the hive beast's open core. The light inside dimmed, but a faint silhouette still lingered. Watching, waiting, trusting. Reyes whispered through clenched teeth. for all those trapped. Tsar warriors raised their plasma spears. Vori pilots steadied their trembling hands. Kiri healers bowed their heads. Hell whispered one final word. Fire. The orbital darkness trembled. The Varkal Dreadmind, the node that commanded the entire invasion fleet, felt something it had never experienced in millions of cycles. Fear, not because of the Terran super soldiers, not because of the orbital guns ripping apart their destroyers, not because the humans had decoded their battlefield frequencies. No, it was afraid because its probability lattice failed to predict one single human. Not the generals, not the admirals, not the diplomats, but Commander Rook Hale, the man standing on the ruin of Earth's last shield generator, wearing cracked armor, bleeding from 3 places, and still lifting a weapon that should have been impossible for any biological to wield. A captured Varkal Graviton lance, a weapon that required a trinary nervous system and a psionic stabilizer, and yet Rook held it like a medieval spear, and when he activated it, the Dreadmind felt its quantum prediction lattice shatter. "Commander," whispered LT, Yun staring at the glowing spear. "That thing will tear your neurons apart." Rook didn't look back. "My neurons can complain later." The lance hummed deep, ancient, alien, the kind of sound that could erase cities, the kind of sound only the Varkal should control. But the moment Rook tightened his grip, the weapon's glow shifted from cold alien blue to blazing molten Terran gold. The Dreadmind reeled. Humans are not supposed to do that. Humans cannot do that. Humans must not do that. And yet here was Commander Hale, doing the impossible with the casual stubbornness only a human could manifest. The spear thrust that rewrote a war across the battlefield. Drones paused mid-flight. Warships staggered in orbit. Every Varkal sensory node focused on one point, the human raising the spear. Rook spoke into the coms, voice rough and steady. "Terra, this is for every child they frightened, for every city they burned, for every last human they thought would kneel." He crouched. He inhaled. The world seemed to freeze. Then Rook launched himself like a missile. A sound ripped across the battlefield, not a boom, but a crack, like reality flinching. The spear pierced through a Varkal behemoth walker, slicing it in half. It carved through another and another. The lance traced a streak of burning gold across the sky. A single human, moving faster than their predictive models could calculate. A single thrust that severed 8 command nodes and disabled a third of the invasion fleet. The impossible had happened. One human was now a strategic-class weapon and in orbit. The Dreadmind panicked. Alarms blared inside the alien megastructure. Probability failure, unknown Terran. Capability, threat level, existential recommended. Surrender or extermination, but extermination protocols required prediction. Prediction required understanding. An understanding humans had proven mathematically impossible. The Dreadmind made a decision no Varkal consciousness had ever made. It initiated an emotion simulation. Desperation, regret, terror. As for the humans below, every soldier paused as Rook landed, the spear embedding into the ground like a golden lightning rod. The battlefield went silent. Yet Joan's voice trembled, half laughing, half crying, "Commander, you just rewrote physics." Rook wiped the blood from his mouth and muttered, "Physics had it coming." He looked up at the sky, at the Dreadmind fortress trembling in fear, and he whispered, "Now."